Hi, folks. Aaron texted me that he's going to be a little bit late, so maybe let's give people 5 minutes at least. And I invite people to turn on their video and or audio if they would like. However, I noticed that these interim meetings are being recorded and uploaded to YouTube automatically. I don't know how to turn it off. I can ask. But that's kind of fun. Am I good?
I don't care. Good to see
Wait
you.
a second. Okay. Hi, Philip. How's it going?
Yeah, so it's amazing to see.
Your
Just
audio is being a little bit
mine
choppy
about
on
an
my
hour
side.
ago.
Very choppy.
Find another place at this conference and you.
Is that choppy for other people as well? Yeah. I'm not sure what's happening.
So the automatic uploading keeps people from showing themselves. Is that how it is?
I'm not sure. I mean,
So
I'm not so
I'm now
worried.
trying. I'm trying to find a place with better Wi-Fi. I'm at the right meeting in Berlin today. Just met Brian about 1 hour ago. So let's see where I find a place with better Wi-Fi.
Are they still doing? Oh no, RIPE is in person now, is it? Hi, Aaron.
I think it is.
Wow, first in-person meeting?
Yeah,
That's
first
awesome.
in-person meeting for the last 2.5 years now.
Wow.
And yeah, so RIPE is hybrid, but here are a lot of people in person.
Cool. How is it?
It's amazing to see so many people again, but it's also extremely tiring because after the first day, everyone is tired.
Right.
You seem to have a much better connection now.
Yes.
Yeah.
So don't move.
So some people might have this familiar view
Okay.
because this is the Interconti in Berlin where I had my first two IETF meetings.
Oh, that's right.
Yep, I remember that place. That was a good venue.
Nice.
I was slightly alarmed people started posting pictures out of the window of that hotel as they were arriving at Ripe, and I was looking at the pictures saying, I know exactly what hotel you're in without you.
If it works, it works. Okay, great. So we are 5 minutes in, and it looks like some people are still joining, but maybe we can slowly get started. Diana, Colin, everybody. Yeah, so today, in terms of agenda, I think we mostly had wanted to talk about the implementation draft, and we did get a few comments, but I was thinking maybe before we do that, we can like briefly check in about. So we have an IETF meeting coming up, but we just had a TAP session at IETF 113, and I think the working groups sort of sense of how often we should have these at an IETF meeting was that maybe every other meeting. So that means we're not having one at 114 would be the idea. And I just wanted to check in if that's sort of still what the working group agrees we should do. In which case we could probably put in an explicit, we are not going to meet kind of thing.
That sounds fine to me. I mean, we should keep doing the interims and keep driving to completion, but I think it'd be okay.
Okay, great.
I have no strong opinions on that.
Okay, good. Yeah, I'm not aware of any other topics other than our usual issues and PRs. So why don't we get started with those? Do we have a volunteer to drive our not slides, GitHub? Please.
I can do it. I'm trying to remember when I ask to share in Meet Echo. That I guess that's just the whole screen that it does. Let's see.
I granted permission, and does it not have the single window kind of thing? I feel like we have this.
No, it doesn't have the
question
single
every
window.
time.
Whatever your browser supports.
I guess.
Oh, Colin is being
Oh.
choppy.
Woo.
Oh.
Okay.
Okay, no, this looks good to me.
Can people? You can see this. Okay. So I think right now I have the issues here filtered for implementation, and then we also have just all of our open PRs.
Yeah.
2 of which are about implementation.
Okay, but I mean, I think we can just talk about all issues and PRs that we have as usual.
Okay. Do we want to kind of start from the oldest, or we do have kind of like the recent review that we got? Do we want to kind of go
the recent
through these?
reviews, right? We also have Torben here with us.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was
Hello.
thinking would be good to do. Okay.
Hi.
Hello. Thank you. Thank you for the review. All right. So this one had a PR opened for it. Just for people to look at the scope. It's not huge, mainly just kind of cleaning things up and trying to clarify bits. I'm in general fine with it. We had some suggestions. Anna commented. I guess for going ahead, should we just try to make the changes we think are appropriate? Do you want to update the pull request based on that? How should we go ahead?
So as the author, maybe I can comment of the PR.
Yes.
I try to be as sort of conservative as possible and sort of make a very minimal PR in terms of scope and the changes. And in order to sort of test the waters, whether this is something that I could keep doing, I realized that you kind of, it was on the agenda that you wanted to wrap this up maybe during this interim meeting. I apologize for not having had more time to sort of go through more of the draft. But yeah, so I would have a few more PRs along these lines in my queue in the next few, yeah, let's say next week or two. If you want to wrap this up, that would also be fine by me.
I think getting the PRs would be great. For myself, I guess like for things like this, are you okay kind of commenting, incorporating the comments we have on that, or do you want us, once you make a PR, to kind of drive it and merge it?
Oh, I can definitely sort of accept your comments into my PR.
Okay.
That's totally fine by me. I just I wasn't sure how much like authority I can assume myself.
I suggest stuff. I think that's great. Anna and I, as the editors, will merge things and make sure it's good. But I think the changes, the type of things you're doing, are all good. And as we point out, like in this place, we want to make sure that we keep the spirit of the API, that it's saying like it's host name first. But I think it's just wording details and making sure we don't lose some of the nuance. But please, continue to make the suggestions.
All right.
All right. So I think we'll just wait for another iteration on this one, but in general, that looks good. There's the other issue here. Kind of specifically talking about one paragraph where it talks about the racing. I think that was fine, so I made a PR of that change. So let's try to fix this one up and merge it in. The entire connection attempt. Which part is that? I see.
Yeah, we use that terminology also in the next paragraph, with still referring to a leaf node. This is what I think made it a bit confusing.
Which terminology? The entire connection attempt, or
connection attempt? So in the PR now, the entire connection attempt refers to the entire process, but connection attempt in the next paragraph refers to the leaf node. So we may want to distinguish
which paragraph are we talking about?
the
I
one
see.
that
Such
comes
as a connection
after
attempt.
on the same.
Yes. I see. Yes.
Such as a connection attempt. So there it's the leaf node action, but in the
I see.
PR text it's the entire process. So that's why I thought we should maybe call it the connection establishment. And then I saw Philip also suggested a third alternative. So I think
which. Oh, right. And so which then notifies the application that the connection as a whole is ready to use. So yeah, this is kind of similar to this second sentence here, which is fine. We could also say, I think we are referring to a connection establishment tree, but could we even just say, when a single leaf node becomes ready to use, the entire, or the connection establishment tree is considered successful, or something like that? That would kind of lean into the terminology here.
That would be fine. I think
Also
that's
fine.
similar to the suggestions, right?
Yeah, or it is considered ready. We even say like once a single leaf node becomes ready to use, then the entire connection establishment tree is considered ready. I think that could work. Any objections to that? Philip, what did you think? Is this okay?
I'm set. Yep, fine with me.
Okay. Commit that. Okay. Great. So let's merge this in. Get one out of the way. All right, and then that should close this issue. All right, and then we have a new one. Section 4.1.
So maybe I can explain real quick.
Please do. Please do.
I noticed that in the happy eyeballs sense, protocol racing is basically means that near simultaneous connection establishment attempts where you basically pick the connection that first succeeds. But in this case, or in this draft, racing is defined more loosely or broader, where in section 4.3 it says that there are 3 different racing approaches: simultaneous, staggered, and failover. And this makes, so coming from an happy eyeballs perspective, reading section 4.1 and 4.2 is a bit confusing before section 4.3 clears up the scope of the term racing.
I see. Here, I'm going to pull up, if you don't mind, I'm going to pull up the editor's copy so that we're all looking at the same text. Come on. All right, so we have this, and let's see, where do we talk about racing? And so I think the parts where it is, at what point does it imply early on that the other types of racing are not staggered races?
So in section, where it says section 4.1.1.3, right there. So
yes.
Here it says implementations that support racing protocols and protocol options should maintain a history and so on. this information can influence further racing decisions to prioritize or prune branches. And coming from a happy eyeball perspective, it's sort of unclear what a racing decision is, because a race is sort of understood in this metaphor of like a race among equals that all start at the same time, and someone is coming in first and they won the race. And only later is then this racing term cast more loosely or defined more loosely, where we have the simultaneous staggered and failover kinds of racing. And it's just a bit confusing that we are obviously talking about racing when we do mean failover, before actually having introduced racing to also mean failover.
I would say we didn't define racing at all above there. So
right. I mean, one solution I could see would be just move the section on racing earlier.
Exactly.
Just like moving before structuring, so just make it be 4.1 to define things. But I guess just to understand more clearly, at what point do you think, like, for example, 4.1.1.3 is talking about failover?
The section 4.1.1.3 doesn't, but the section 4.1.12 does, where it says attempts should be started on one path and then successively on other paths or interfaces after delays based on expected path round-trip time and so on.
Oh, but I actually consider that to be staggered, just like normal happy eyeballs.
Yeah. So normal
After
happy eyeballs isn't equal. Normal happy eyeballs isn't equal at all, because usually you give IPv6 a small head start.
Yeah. Right. Normal happy eyeballs is staggered, as it says.
Definitely.
All right. So this this section then implies a staggered approach. Okay.
Yeah, but I do think, based on what you're saying,
that this is the most common maybe or something, and refer back to the happy eyeball.
Yes, exactly. So,
right.
so
I'm not
fully
sure if
admit-
it will
yeah.
help with the ability to reshuffle the sections.
Okay.
Because it's really a
that's
detail for how the racing may happen, right? And in any way, I think the racing kind of refers to the fact that whichever connection succeeds first wins. And that is the case for all three of them. It's a question of when they start, right? That can be in three different ways.
Right.
So the reason why
Sorry?
I think it doesn't really need much of a clarification is that, I mean, I looked at the draft, and it somewhere points back at the architecture draft, where we have a pretty clear definition of what this is. It even says we refer to this process as borrowing terminology from happy eyeballs, and then it explains how this could operate. So I think the architecture draft solves our problem, doesn't it?
Yeah. Although, what I'm wondering, so the reason for Section 4 is structured the way it is it kind of does things in order. It says first you build your tree, then you kind of gather the candidates for each layer, then you race them. Like, it's kind of the order of operations, and then you complete the establishment. So to that end, it's nice to have them in this order. And you're right that we do talk about Section 4.2.2 of the architecture. But what we don't have is in the Section 4 a forward reference to the candidate gathering section, the candidate racing section, and the completed establishment. So we should probably, in this paragraph, have more references to the rest of the document, and maybe mention here that the kind of default style of racing is staggered, just to get that in people's head, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah,
It does to me.
From my perspective, it was simply I maybe took the racing metaphor too literally and sort of thought, okay, we start the race more or less simultaneously, and wait who comes in first. But from this like TAPS perspective, it's just a perspective on at the finish line, so to speak, and whichever comes in first has won the race, and it's not actually talking about sort of starting in any fair way or something like this.
Yes. Okay. Great. So my suggestion is we fix this in essentially the introduction to section 4 and how we introduce all of this. And I can take that if that works for everyone. Okay. Thank you. That is definitely useful. And then this one I'm going to be assigning to you. All right. Other than that, all of the issues are assigned to someone. I think some of the older ones still need to be done. Reese, what would you like to do? Do we want to go through these issues, some of which we've looked at before? I mean, I know, we just need to do them. Do we want to look at some of the other pull requests that are open?
Yeah, maybe let's look at pull requests.
Yeah, because we have a couple new ones. While we're all here, it'd be good. All right, let's look at this.
Yeah, so that one was brought up in the meeting.
Ooh.
This was me trying to address the comment from the meeting, but I also agree with Phil's point here. So I don't know if we should have it or not, because it's protocol specific, really.
Yeah,
It's a dependency on the protocol you're using.
It does.
So if we just dump this, I really don't mind. I was skeptical about having that in the first place. Just at the meeting, I didn't see the issue, and it was brought up as a request because some people wanted that for Quick. I mean, maybe there's another way to do it more cleanly. I don't know.
So I think the reason that people wanted
That's
it
interesting.
I think the reason that people wanted it for Quick was because like H3 has specific semantics about the meanings of particular stream IDs. And the one SCTP multi-streaming protocol that I have experience with is IPFix, which also has specific semantics for stream IDs. So like both of the users of these protocols actually do want, in certain cases, to be able to say explicitly use this stream ID.
Yeah.
So if we want to allow those protocols to be implemented with TAPS, which I think we probably do, or at least we don't want to specifically forbid it, then we would need something like this. My comment here is a little bit cheeky. Like I'm basically saying, look, we have two examples of multi-streaming protocols. They both use integer stream IDs. I could imagine like esoteric protocols trying to use something other than an integer stream ID, but it would be like a chunk of bytes, which you could just use an arbitrary length of integer for. Like we don't say what the length of the integer is in the API. So I think there are two objections to doing this. One is we are assuming integer semantics for stream IDs. I'm kind of okay with that, right? If you want to build a protocol that breaks TAPS, cool. Spend 6 years in the IETF process, get it standardized. That would be an excellent joke. The other objection to it is that we're basically now have two ways to specify that you're multi-streaming, and like one is our connections in a connection group thing, and then we just sort of like poked the stream ID through this, and I'm not sure what that means, right? Like, so what happens if I create a bunch of connections in a connection group, the TAP system figures out they're going to bunch them together into a multi-streaming connection, and then I do a thing with a stream ID. Like, so if I've done a bunch of clones and stream ID 7 is already taken, and then I see connection.clone stream ID, do I have like sort of a stochastic error generator?
Yeah, I mean, you could intelligently query the numbers before that, see if
Or you could say that if you
see if they're occupied.
You could also say that if you specify a stream ID for any cloned connection, you must specify a stream ID for all of them, right? Because that's what you're going to do. Like, if you're ever going to do it, the application will either say, I care about stream IDs and I'm going to allocate them myself, or I don't actually care about the underlying transport at all. Give me something that works, but it won't say both. Or if it does, I think it's probably fine for that application to fail.
That's why it's an optional parameter.
Right. But it's a weird optional parameter. It's an optional parameter that if you use it once, you must always use it. And if you don't use it once, you must never use it.
But it's not like that, right?
Yeah.
You could use it once because you care about one particular stream number, and you see that this is not occupied, and you say, I want to create that stream which has number 3, and for all the others, I don't care.
But I think realistically, if you're building an application where the application protocol does stream ID allocation, that stream ID allocation is complete. Right? If you decide you want to reach into the machinery of TAPS and say, I'm telling you what stream IDs you're using, then congratulations, it's now your responsibility to tell me the stream IDs I'm using.
Well, really, I mean, the cases I've heard of is that you have one particular stream, you have a receiver expecting something on one particular stream number, and that is the one you care about, and all the others you might not care about.
So, yeah, but how do we access the stream number now?
It's the other part of the same PR. I mean, you can set it here, but there's also a way to query it. I put that into that PR.
But you also don't know if you will get the multi-streaming protocol when you call.
No.
So that kind of complicates things.
I would say if you do a clone, if you clone a connection with a stream ID and it's not multi-streaming, that's an error. That's an establishment error. Right. So basically, if you're in a situation where you actually care about the stream ID as the application, you're going to want to over-constrain things, so you're only ever going to select quicker SCTP. And we give you the ability to do that, right? I mean, in the selection property, you can select on multi-streaming, can we not? We could at one point.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah. So you as an application can force yourself into this corner. And I think there are valid reasons to be in it.
But is that one I can require multi-streaming, or this is just advisory?
You would say that the selection things require multi-streaming, and then every time you start a connection, you give it a stream ID. Which means, so what we would need to do in this case is we'd also need initiate to take a stream ID as well, because you might need to say which stream.
Oh man, yeah.
So what about really doing this as, let's say, allowing for clone and for initiate to specify a list of protocol specific parameters where we really can. And then you can explicitly say, okay, I got SCTP, let's use SCTP.streamID and have the stream ID of SCTP. Because I have no idea whether IPFix over quick will be defined, but I'm not sure whether IPFix over quick would have the same semantics for the stream IDs as IPFix over SCTP has.
Yeah, I agree. It should be protocol dependent.
Yep.
I think having it as now
we
is
need a
not
generalized mechanism for handing protocol dependent parameters as a list to initiate and clone optionally. right? I mean, you don't
Yep.
want to do that. Yep, that's the right solution.
Yeah. So Philip, yeah, what I was going to suggest is the exact same thing of, we have the concept, particularly in the architecture of, they're protocol specific properties, and we just need to explicitly say that those can be passed in to clone and initiate. And that's where, because you may say for quick, hey, I just want a unidirectional stream, and you don't care what the numbers are. Like, there can be different flavors, and obviously not every protocol has unidirectional stream support.
Yeah, I mean, I can do that. I can update my PR.
Yep. So interim discussion. Let's make clone and initiate take a group of specific.
Yeah.
And that's more or less what our implementation does.
Is that enough? Do we not need Brian's proposal of the selection property that says I really want a multi-streaming protocol and so forth?
We already have it, don't we? Don't we already have it?
Oh, to require multi-streaming? Not sure.
We have a.
Isn't it a selection property?
Maybe.
I thought it was a selection property. Let me go look at the editor's copy once.
Multi-stream connections in group. Oh, yeah. Would prefer. Yeah, right, we have it.
Yeah, you can do it.
There's a preference. You can also decide to. Oh, yeah, we have it. Okay, then that's all that's needed.
Did we
lost Tommy?
Did we lose Tommy?
Looks like it.
I think we lost Tommy.
Okay, but
Hello.
the listing.
Audio again.
I've been able to hear you the whole
Okay.
time, and I was talking, and I couldn't tell I was gone because I was sharing my screen. I thought.
Great. You're no longer sharing your screen, and you disappeared for a while. So.
Yeah. Well. All right. I think we have a good way forward here, and that looks good. So.
Yes.
All right. Let me share screen again. Okay. Good. Michael, this is you. Oh, that's so fun.
Yes.
All right. Got some non-negatives.
Oh yeah, I think this should be a no-brainer.
And the reason this is numeric instead of integer is that timeouts can be floating point.
Yeah, so that's not a new decision. I was just adding
Yeah.
non-negative because pretty much everything is non-negative.
Right.
And then there was a typo here and there. I think one typo and one comment about something if it exists, but it didn't have this or not available.
Merge it.
Do it.
Yeah, I think this is easy.
All right. All right. So then the only other one, Colin, you had opened up a new thing about multicast. Should we go on and talk about that?
we can talk about that if you like. Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. So this is actually an old issue, which has been open for quite a while about multicast, and I made a PR to try and sketch out what a sort of sample answer here. The way multicast is currently done is that it's a little odd in that it uses the local endpoint to specify the multicast group in some cases, and there didn't seem to be a way of specifying the local interface by which you're using to join that group. And it was a bit weird in that there wasn't any way of rendezvousing to say that you can have one connection that can both send and receive to the group. So I was trying to sketch out an alternative which looked a little more like the way multicast works with sockets, where the local interface, the local endpoint was the local address and port to which you bound, and the remote was the multicast group. And then you can listen on that or send to that, and they do the obvious thing for a receive only or a send only multicast group, which matches nicely with an SSM session. Or you could rendezvous on it, and the idea was that would give you an ASM group to which you could both send to, and you would be joined, so you would receive the packets. And I thought that worked out okay until I tried to put in how we handle source filtering. And then you run into sort of a bit of an odd case in that we don't really have enough addresses, because you need the local address which you're bound to, you need the address the people are sending from, and you need the group address somewhere. And we've only got local and remote addresses in the protocol. And so for the way I ended up writing it was that if you initiate, you end up with the local endpoint of the connection representing your local interface, and the remote endpoint representing the group. And for when you listen, you end up with a connection group where the local is the multicast group and the remote is the address from which the packets are being received. And then for a rendezvous, you end up with a connection group where you've got one send only representing the connection you're sending on, and then each of those you're receiving, because you can be receiving from multiple sources, generates a connection where the local is the group and the remote is the address where you're getting it from. So I'm not sure it works out any better than what was in there before, but it's got a different set of problems at least.
What's
and this is clearly not ready to merge.
So one suggestion is one idea. We have so many WIS specification for the remote and local endpoint. Why do we not explicitly ask for the remote endpoint having WIS multicast group, and then adding the group ID as an explicit parameter to the remote object? Then we could be really safe that we can do both source filtering and group filtering.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably the right solution, is to have because I mean, you've got a third address now when there's a group, and it's just to add that in explicitly. And that was a bigger change than I had time to make just before this meeting, because you'll notice this PR was submitted about 2 minutes before the meeting started. But I think that's probably the right answer, although it's a pretty big change to the way multicast works.
So essentially you're saying add something like remote specifier with multicast addressing group with multicast, which will take the address and the group, like that.
So
Philip,
yes.
I would just say with multicast group and the group, and then you can add with address for the filtering.
Oh, I see what you mean. So, right, so you just have this. Right, so we just have with IPv4 address.
Yeah, and then when you were, well, I mean, you're going to get a connection group when you're receiving on an ASM session anyway, because you could have because packets can be coming from multiple places. How would we specify the group there?
To be able to check the group or to set the group?
So I mean, when you're creating when you're creating the connection, I would say you need to specify the local and you need to specify the remote as being, I would think, the multicast group and the port to which you're sending. Though that's not what's currently in the draft. But when you're receiving, you want the remote to be the sender of the packet, and it's not clear whether you want the local to be the multicast group or the local to be the local interface to which you're bound to. And then if you do that, then how do you specify the group?
I would say with local address, so with local interface, you specify the interface, and the remote, you specify the group, because it's the remote address from which, or which somehow identifies the session. It looks a little bit odd, but I think
the remote. So when you're making a connection, I think the remote wants to be the group. But when you're receiving data from that group, is the remote the group, or is it the IP address of the person sending to the group?
You can do both. You can say remote with group. Oh, remote with multicast group, then it's the group you want to listen to. And if you want to further restrict that, you could also say with address, and then the address of the person sending, also for listening.
Sure. That I think is clear. But so let's say I'm joining an ASM group, and I specify in my pre-connection that my local is my Wi-Fi interface, say, on whatever port. The remote is the multicast group and whatever port. And I want packets from anyone sending to that group. And I think we can specify that as a pre-connection easily. What connections then get created when the packets arrive from that group? Is it a connection group with a new connection for each sender? Or is it a single connection where I can receive datagrams from multiple places? And how do I figure out where these datagrams are coming from? That's where it gets complicated. And the way I wrote it in this PR is it generates a connection group where there's one connection which I can use to send, which has my local address and the destination address being the group. And then the ones I want to receive on, the local address is the group and the remote address is the address of the person sending it.
Yes.
And I'm not sure that's right, but I couldn't find a better way of doing it because we only have local and remote addresses.
I think that works. But it'd be good to have, Well, I mean, this is also not updating the examples. It'd be good to see, what's the ramification on the examples of how we use it.
Yeah, exactly.
Very concrete.
I wanted to make sure the idea made sense before I went through and fleshed out all the examples. Because it's a pretty big change from what's in there now.
So I think the idea makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think it's actually way, looking at the complexities, it's way better than what's there now. So.
Yep.
Yeah. It's a bit odd because you end up with a connection group where some of the connections have your local address and some of the group has the local address. But
multicast is a bit odd anyway, so.
Well, true.
Tolerable.
Yeah.
Or we just say that the multicast group is always a special thingy, and so you have the multicast group as a special thing on the remote, no matter whatever you do. And so you get away with this kind of dualism.
Well, I think just having the multicast group as the remote is what's in there. Well, problem with that is you then don't know where the packets are coming from.
Yeah. you have both flags on the remote side. You have the multicast group as one attribute of the remote, and you have the actual sender addresses as the address of the remote object. So you just have two flags of that.
Yeah, we need to find ways of querying that, but yeah.
I think we should use the chance of having an extendable object-like interface anyway, because we are not forced to use any address field as the BSD socket API had to. So we should use the chance to make it easy and understandable.
Don't know. I think I'm inclined to try and flesh out what I've got here a bit more with the examples and see how it works.
Sounds good.
Okay. All right, I'll try and do that. Thanks.
Wonderful. Okay, so that's our PRs. Stop this for a second. So I think we have some work to do on the implementation issues still, but those are all assigned. I'm happy to take more of a stab at them after this and do that this week, and we can just iterate on GitHub.
And we also
Cheers,
have.
what do you want to do?
Sorry, I was just gonna confirm. We also have some more comments in the queue from Torben, right? And then we also had asked Christian Amsüs for a review, or he actually volunteered to review at the last IETF meeting, but I haven't seen his review yet, but I pinged him. Haven't gotten a reply yet. So there is also one outstanding review coming there, hopefully.
I think a few of the outstanding issues we had on implementation were connected to your review, Brian, and you did the review. So I'm wondering if they are still open or if they just didn't get closed.
Ooh, let me see. Which issues are we talking about here?
Yeah, maybe let's look at the other issues for implementation that we have open.
Sure.
Yeah.
Let me pull those up.
I have 11 open.
Oh. Gotta approve.
I think all the ones that I created have been handled now.
I think so, yeah.
At least I'm not seeing any open ones with my name on them.
Because there's some old ones from Myria that I have that I should just do. There's one I had opened.
So the ones I was...
Oh, I have 2 assigned to me, actually.
Yeah, those were the 2
Yes,
I
you
was
have 2.
thinking of, because I think they were connected to your review.
I think I did these. Actually check.
That's what I was wondering.
I'll do this on my review pass. There you go.
Now, did I actually do that, or did I just completely forget?
Let's go and look at our protocol. Protocol stack. There's a lot of raw protocol.
Right. I want to say I did this. I'm looking for the 745, 748, 767. 768.
There's definitely stuff that talks about protocol incidents and protocol stack in here.
Yeah.
Like
Let me actually
section
look at the
7.2. I wonder if we go to the blame, we can see like where did this come from.
So I think 767 addressed some of this, but I didn't do the full crunch. Let me look at see what 745 did. So I might need to do that pass again.
Okay.
Let's assume I need to do that pass. Privacy consideration section.
Yeah. Okay.
Did that. So let me actually look at code and ball. I remember doing a privacy consideration section, but that might have been for a different draft. Because this is still just called security consideration. Got it. Okay.
We do have a security and privacy considerations section in the architecture draft.
Yes.
So I'm not sure if maybe we just decided that all privacy considerations should. Oh, we have also a privacy and security considerations section in the interface draft. So maybe we
Right.
decided that we wanted to put all of the privacy considerations into a different draft. That's not the implementation draft. In which case we should probably note that in this issue. But yeah, why don't you do another pass and
I'll
sort
do
of.
another pass and I'll figure that out.
Thanks.
I'm not going to do it right now. So I just noticed. You're like, okay, do the pass. All right. I guess we have an art.
I mean, what we could also do is, if we don't have other things to talk about right now, we could, spend the other part of the hour we allocated going off and typing up the PRs we have assigned to us.
It actually doesn't sound like a bad idea.
Yeah, but maybe we
I'd be happy
can
to
just
do that.
briefly talk about sort of timelines for what we are about to do. So we are still waiting on comments and or reviews, which might take a couple weeks. I'm not sure. Maybe we want to do an interim meeting sometime in June. However, my June doesn't look so great for meetings, but
I would be in favor of a June interim.
But I could do another doodle if people like that.
Yeah.
Maybe with a
That's
shorter expiration this time. And then, yeah, try to gather all comments by the next interim meeting and also have people sort of resolve the outstanding issues on the implementation draft.
We cannot hear you, Aaron.
I think
we can imagine you sighing. I mean,
it doesn't look like your audio is.
It doesn't.
Yeah,
seem
the
like
audio is not turned on in Meet Echo.
Looks like you're muted.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are we planning on asking for a slot in Philadelphia?
No.
Okay.
I mean, we were talking about that earlier, and if people still agree that we are probably meeting every other meeting or so, depending on whether we have things to talk about. So yeah, I would make that explicit that we're not having a TAPS meeting in Philadelphia as well. Okay. we'll have an interim meeting in June due to come, and we still have our outstanding issues. Okay. Anything? Let's maybe. Oh, Gory made it just now.
Hi,
Hey,
Gory.
He was having trouble joining, but
Am I the
not
only
quite
one who
sure
had to
if he
like
figured
click through the data tracker like 5 times to get it to authorize? It was very strange. Okay. And like I restarted Chrome and everything, which, you know,
Oof.
with as many tabs as I have open is kind of a traumatic experience.
For me, it worked more or less straight, but everything took about 3 minutes of waiting.
Well, it's good to see your window, Corey.
Hiya. Yeah. I don't know. I think I was logged in at home because I came home when it worked. I couldn't log into the data tracker at all at work.
Okay, weird.
That's weird.
Unless, can I only log in once? Did I have to actually force myself to
No,
log out at
I don't
home?
think it's like Netflix. I don't think that there's like, you know, you have to pay the meeting fee 3 times if you want to be able to log into the data tracker from multiple devices.
Whatever. Anyway, sorry. Here I am.
Yes, meeting's over, Gory. Sorry.
Yeah, we're
Alright,
just
well,
about to wrap up for the meeting today.
So
Did you have
are
anything
we
you wanted
ready
to
to
bring up?
publish all these things then?
No, we still have some
We are waiting for
outstanding
more
reviews.
reviews.
I mean, but like, so I would like to note that it's been like we've done a little touching of the architecture draft, but it was like a very minor touch this time around. That is, that still seems stable, so that makes me happy.
Yeah. And I think we do also have some outstanding issues on the API draft, which we should also get
Those
to
are
at
all
some
fine.
point.
Do we have anything not assigned?
Oh yeah, there is one issue by Tom actually. That is not assigned.
Oh.
Really?
Yeah.
Can you guys hear me now?
The one,
Yes.
well, 1012, I volunteer. Take it.
Awesome.
Yes. This is on the API draft. Yeah, good.
Okay, thank you. I assigned you. Oh, yes, you self-assigned.
Beat it to it.
All right, going once, going twice. Everybody gets an hour to go write PRs.
Yes, please.
Great seeing you all. See you in
Cool.
June.
Thanks, folks.
Bye-bye, everybody.